Royal Exclusive is launching our first live show and you can be part of the audience. Join me at our HQ in the heart of London to put your questions to legendary Sun Royal photographer Arthur Edwards and former BBC Royal correspondent Jenny Bond. Head to the link in the description below for tickets.
What I'm saying is that Harry, with his wife or his children, if that was a decision made, and it would have to be with the approval of the King and the Queen, be rest assured that the British government, in close concentration and with the Metropolitan Police, would make sure that they would receive together the right protection.
That's exactly the point. That is why she's not travelling. No, it's not an end of story.
But it is. I'm just telling you what it is.
No, but the fact is, he believes that if he brings his wife with him, she will not be afforded the protection that he feels is necessary.
That's what he believes. I'm not saying that.
But you're saying it's got to be put to the test. What? Leave her exposed? The reality is he doesn't believe that is what he's going to get, and that's why he's taking the court case.
All right. Let's see. The court case, I think, is going to rumble on till next year, I think. We're expecting it in spring next year, and there's lots of appeals and coming back and forth. Now, the late Queen obviously had the mantra, never complain, never explain. Have you seen what's been going on in the US media in the last couple of weeks? First of all, we had the Hollywood Reporter, a well-respected magazine in Los Angeles, that they had sources, they say 12 sources, one of them was very high up in the Sussex's organisation, saying that they call Meghan Duchess difficult and a dictator in high heels. Now, we were on the show last week and we discussed this, and Archwell had come back and said, these quotes are all fabricated, this is all nonsense, no one says this about her. Then this week, in Us Weekly, named members of staff have come out in support of Meghan. This has then led to the Daily Beast, another US publication, coming back with more aides calling her a demon and recalling psycho moments of when she was working at the palace. Well, what's going on here in the US media? Well, they're all turning on her now in the same way that was possibly happening in the UK when she was here.
I mean, the reality is, obviously, there are a number of people that dislike her and are leaking quite heavily against her. But then, and this whole business of this named members of staff, it does seem to me that it's like they protest too much. I mean, there must be a little bit of truth in that there's been difficulty. We know that happened when it was from what happened when she was working and based over here. So look,
it's eerily familiar, isn't it, to what was happening?
Similar. And there's been a lot of changeover, as I wrote in The Sun not long ago. There's been a number of turnover of staff. But, you know, I think that she does get probably a bad press all the time. It's easy. She's an easy shot, I think. And I think that this is probably what's happened here, is that they've decided to put out these series of statements to change the narrative, because that's what their PR people will say. You've got to change the narrative. It won't change the narrative.
We spoke about security. We won't get back into security again, but
not again.
Not again. But where do Harry and Meghan go from here? If they're falling out with Hollywood, if they're losing friends, and even friends in the media, US publications are turning on them. Like the original report, Hollywood Reporter, was saying that Hollywood is turning its back on them. Where do they go from here if they lose friends, if they run out of friends or run out of contacts in California?
Well, I don't know I mean, you just quote two publications there, Matt, the Beast and Us. You know, actually seemed to me to be a draw, actually, that one's saying something good about her, the other saying something bad about her, and then people coming out of both sides saying, well, you know, she's good, this, what. I quite frankly, I don't know. Because, you know, that's not really my side of things. But look, I witnessed such fallout within our own royal family during the Diana days, with people saying things in the office and reports leaking into newspapers and magazines. So this is just a continuum of what happens, because it's good copy because of who they are. But to answer your story about what do they do, as I said to you, my own view is that whether they ran out of friends or things to do in America, which, hang on a minute, it can't be that bad living in the size mansion they do. And they've still got quite a bit of cash to make life worth living. So it isn't that bad a story. So I haven't got a great deal of sympathy for them. But I do appreciate that he, as I said to you, a prince of the realm, and up and just prior to Brexit, Megxit rather, he was more popular than the Queen. So, this guy is quite important. He has a personality, he has a style that's so unique that quite frankly, he thought he could do 6 months in and 6 months out. It hasn't worked out like that because the Queen wouldn't allow that. But he's still got something to offer. It's a question of how he puts it together with his wife and family to see if he can achieve some sort of comeback. Let's look at the King and Queen at the moment, both now in their late 70s. William and Kate seem not to be at it at the moment for probably good reason. So is there a slot for him? I don't know.
No.
I think we've got to wait and see what happens, because the answer is, I don't know. But going back to these fallouts within their household, as I said, this happens. It happens in any big unit. Particularly, it happened in my time with the Prince of Wales office and the Prince's office as it was then. So I don't see anything unusual about that, where people making statements to the media, what some good, some bad.
When you worked, or when you were in Kensington Palace, or when you worked with Princess Diana, what was the kind of atmosphere because there was a War of the Waleses at that stage as well, wasn't there? What was the atmosphere working with Diana when she was seeing critical stories in the newspaper, then positive stories in the newspaper? Because look, Harry is Diana's son, so he's going to have certain traits that his mother had. How did she react to both negative and positive press?
Well, during the mid-'80s, the press coverage of Diana was highly positive. It was only when the media got wind of the real story surrounding her and the introduction of Camilla, etc., that the storyline changed. So there was a lot of truth, a lot of untruth in that. Diana dealt with that remarkably well. I have to say that, given the unhappiness of her marriage at that time, to perform on a daily basis with the public was not easy. And so, yeah, she did deal with it. And I think, that's part of being royal. The royal family themselves have had to do this with all the accusations, particularly with the late Duke of Edinburgh, etc., and even the King himself now. I think they're very good at adapting to it, dealing with it and moving on. And I think Harry has to do the same, and he will do. There's no question of that.
Do you see... talk about, I just mentioned there, obviously, Harry is Diana's son. They must have certain traits. Do you see many similarities between Prince Harry and Princess Diana from when you knew her?
Do I see any similarities? I think, yes, they're both entertainers. Harry was always the court jester as a child.
Right.
Part of the problem with him and his brother was that William was somewhat jealous of his popularity. But like his mother, she liked to be entertained. She liked to be popular. I think this is what Harry, he was popular, certainly when he was here in the United Kingdom. And I think he still is now in America. For the negativeness that's come out of these last 2 articles, people will say that he's actually very fun to be with. He's very good in meetings. He's always mindful and careful of how he speaks to his staff, etc. But which was a classic Diana. She was very generous. She was a gift-giving. Harry's exactly the same. This is how the Spencers, I think, operated. But I do see similarities. I do see similarities.
Yeah, you mentioned the Spencers there, because obviously Harry spent a lot of time when he was over last. He was with Earl Spencer. Is that side of the family that he might start leaning on now, the Spencers?
Well, it was quite interesting, wasn't it, that he spent time with Earl Spencer, but that would be expected. We saw William, didn't we, when Lady Sarah McCorkindale was at that engagement alongside him at Cranwell a few days later. I think you were there. So I think the Spencers throughout history have always played both sides off against the middle when it comes to the crown.
Well, I think that, for me, I'll never forget Spencer's eulogy at Diana's funeral. That was barbed in so many ways. The Spencers, they're quite a close unit, despite, their history. But Charles Spencer, who, I have quite a lot of time for, and I think it was always going to be his responsibility that he would look after, William and Harry wherever he could. And I think the move in recently of Harry's meeting with him was symptomatic of what he would want. Yeah, at least he has a bolt hole there. But I think, yeah, there are similarities, definitely.